Welcome to worship here at the First Church of the Brethren of San Diego, located at 3850 Westgate Place in the City Heights area. We are celebrating Father's Day today, so please be safe. If you're heading out grilling or traveling to the beach or the park, we may be oh so done with COVID-19, but COVID-19 is not oh so done with us. So we've had 8 outbreaks here in San Diego this week. So just please be aware of that and take care of each other. My name is Sarah Haldeman-Scar. I pastor the First Church of the Brethren of San Diego, and it is my honor and joy to be able to do that. We come out of the Anabaptist tradition, and we believe Jesus is the center of our faith. Community is the center of our life. Reconciliation is the center of our work, and we do that and embody those values as we work for justice and as we share hospitality. Today is my Sunday off, so Jay and the worship team have made arrangements for Jake Brunelli to be with us sharing our sermon this morning. Jake has been worshiping with us probably right before COVID hit. So we've been getting to know him and enjoying him. He'll be introducing himself a little bit before he shares the scripture and message with us this morning. Our journey with Job continues this week. So may you experience this time as an experience with God that touches your heart, and may this experience with God continue to enlighten you throughout the week. Welcome to worship. As we gather here today in worship together, I want to ask you to think about your voices of love this week. I just want to acknowledge, we have been in this COVID thing since March 15th. And I know it is really difficult, especially with everything reopening. It's hard to keep ourselves remembering that COVID-19 is not done with us. So I would hope that as you think about the voices of love this week, think about those folks that you still haven't seen for a while. Think about those folks that you just want to grab them and give them a hug or just share a handshake with. And knowing that we can't do that, let's share a voice of love in a card or an email or a text. And through it all, folks, through it all, dear ones, we are gonna make it because we are taking care of each other. And we're continuing to meet online for worship, and we're sharing the love of God as we can with those we meet throughout the week. Think again, take the time to jot a name down, turn the video off at this point if you would like, and take time to greet one another with a voice of love. I'll be here when you come back. As we continue to live together, sometimes a little more closely than we want to, as we move more deeply into dealing with our own white privilege and understanding what that means in a system of racism, it's easy to feel drained and hopeless. And then we're dealing with Job, right, who's in midst of this angry relationship with God. And oftentimes, your heart just kind of comes down a little bit. And sometimes we just feel like our anger and our sadness is wrong. And it's not. It's a part of who we are. So I invite you to think about that anger or that sadness that you're feeling and just bring it in, right? Just bring it in. And wrap your heart around it. And think as you experience that, think about what grounds you in those times. What grounds you into that being? Remember a time when God has filled your heart and your lives with love and hope, and draw on that energy. Taking time just to be still and know that God is with you. As we ground ourselves in that God energy, as we ground ourselves in God's hope, let's breathe in a count of 4, hold it a count of 4, and then expel a count of 4. Breathe in the energy of God. Release yourself into the hope that God provides. Let's do it 2 times. Breathing in that energy of God. And breathing out into the hope that we can have in Jesus. And I invite you to continue that grounding breath, that breathing in that energy of God, that transforming energy of God, and holding it and then breathing out the hope. Continue to do that as you listen to Susan play our hymn or our song of prayer. Join me in prayer, won't you? Hope-filled God, you are our guide through these troubled times. So often we think that with you in our lives, we do not need anything or anyone else, and we are so wrong. We need others. We need our friends. We need our families. We need those around us. We need those who work on the front lines. We need those who take care of the elderly and the infirmed. We need others to ground us, to keep us calm, to invite us to times of silence. When we reach the end of our abilities, oh God, our abilities to think straight and make sense, allow us, lead us to that gentle stream of quiet stillness, so that we can find calm, so that we can ground ourselves in the love and patience that you have for us and that we can share with the world. Help us to stay on the road toward you. when I feel like my path, or when we feel like our paths are taking us away from you, draw us back. Help us to know that your presence is always there, and it's always life-giving. Every day, oh God, we will come to you to know your goodness, and you will walk with us all the days of our lives. And for that, we are thankful. Even in our times of anger and distress, we are thankful that you hear our prayers, that you are with us. Yea, though we walk through the valley of the shadow of death, you will comfort us. For thine is the glory and the kingdom and the power forever and ever. Amen.
Hi everybody, my name's Jake. I first started attending the Church of the Brethren. It's been a few weeks before COVID happened, so if you don't recognize my face, that's probably why. I've only been to the actual building a handful of times. I study Anabaptist theology at Northern Seminary. It's in Chicago, but I'm able to live down here and go to school over there at the same time. So that's a fun thing that I don't have to deal with the winters. I'm going to be continuing through Job. I'm doing Job 14, 7 through 15, and Job 19, 22 through 27. I'm reading from the NIV. So I'll start with Job 14, 7. At least there is hope for a tree. If it is cut down, it will sprout again, and its new shoots will not fail. Its roots may grow old in the ground, and its stump die in the soil. Yet at the scent of water it will bud, and put forth shoots like a plant. But a man dies and is laid low. He breathes his last and is no more. As the water of a lake dries up, or the riverbed becomes parched and dry, so he lies down and does not rise. Till the heavens are no more, people will not awake or be roused from their sleep. If only you would hide me in my grave, and conceal me till your anger has passed. If only you would set me a time, and then remember me. If someone dies, will they live again? All the days of my hard service, I will wait for my renewal to come. You will call, and I will answer you. You will long for the creature your hands have made. Now, Job 19, 22 through 27. Why do you pursue me as God does? Will you never get enough of my flesh? Oh, that my words were recorded, that they were written on a scroll, that they were inscribed with an iron tool on lead, or engraved in rock forever. I know that my Redeemer lives, and that in the end he will stand on the earth. And after my skin has been destroyed, yet in my flesh I will see God. I myself will see him with my own eyes, I and not another. How my heart yearns within me. So a quick word on how the book of Job is set up. There's kind of 3 cycles in Job. Each cycle is one of Job's friends. Job's friend will say something, then Job will reply, then another friend, then Job, then the third friend, then Job, and that's one cycle. And there's 3 of those. So Job 14 is at the end of the first cycle, then Job 19 is in the middle of the second cycle, and then there will be a 4th friend, but he doesn't come in until later, so he's not in this part of the story. So Job 14, Job is replying to a friend, and he's contrasting nature with the mortality of humans, saying that even if you cut down a tree, the tree's roots will still search for water. A new plant could bud from it. But humans, when they die, that's the end of it, and there's unfortunately no coming back. And then in 14 he says if someone dies, will they live again? So he's kind of wrestling with the questions of like an afterlife and things of that sort. But verses 13, 14 also, Job is placing an imaginary protective bubble around himself, saying, if only you would hide me, even in my grave, and conceal me till your anger has passed. So he's saying even death could be a quick reprieve from all that is happening in his life. So that's what 7 through 15 is about. And Job 19, at this point in the story, he is very angry at God, angry at his friends for not listening. Verse 22, he says, "Why do you pursue me as God does?" He's replying to his friends saying, "You have not listened to me. You are pursuing me in the way that God's destroyed everything in my life, and you guys are just adding on top of that." And then verse 25, it sounds really hopeful and optimistic. It says, "I know that my Redeemer lives, and that in the end he will stand on the earth." But this translation is misleading, maybe. So I'm gonna reread it with the translation in the footnotes, because Bibles will have different translations down there. So I'm gonna reread it with a little different translation, and then see what Job was actually kind of getting at. It says, "I know that my vindicator lives, and that he will stand on my grave. And after I awake, though this body has been destroyed, then apart from my flesh, I will see God." So Job is not, well, when you hear the word redeemer, you often, for us Christians, Jesus is the first one to come to mind, or maybe just God in general. But Job is not calling on God at this point. He's calling on a vindicator to avenge him from God. He is calling on somebody to fight God on his behalf, even after his death. The Hebrew word that's translated there is redeemer of blood, which is usually a close kinsman who avenges a wronged family member after death. So at this point, Job no longer believes that God will act justly toward him. He thinks that the vindicator will avenge him against God's scandalous conduct. Job wants revenge, and he is not appealing to God in any way. He even believes that he's going to die before this happens, so he's not even hoping to stay alive. The only thing that Job is hoping for at this point is revenge after his death. So one thing is certain about Job 19 is that he's still very, very angry at this time, and he believes he's going to die, and the only thing that he wants to settle for is revenge. So the role of the three friends throughout Job, and in this part, is that they serve as archetypes for the traditional thinking in the ancient Near East. So the fourth friend, who has not come in yet, Elihu, he is the traditional Israelite thinking. So that's why he has a little bit different of a perspective than the other three friends. But there are 6 well-preserved Mesopotamian texts and 5 Egyptian texts that are all kind of similar to Job in the questions they're asking. And they were very well known at the time. So Job's 3 friends are sort of personified texts. They're the text personified. And Elihu is the Israelite understanding. So while Job's 3 friends, their biggest thing is that they fail to listen to Job. But the reason they do that is because they are operating under this worldview where they assume they know how God works, and they assume they know how the world operates. And so God is just, and the world operates within this retribution principle. So good people receive good, bad people receive bad. And if God is truly just and good people get blessings, then there's no way Job could actually be innocent while the other 2 are true. So Job has to be lying or dishonest or unaware of some sort of sin he committed. Otherwise, a just God within the retribution principle could not be treating somebody like that. And that's sort of the worldview within the ancient Near East and the texts that were around at that time. But the cool thing about the book of Job is that it doesn't answer the question of why do good people suffer or why does bad things happen to good people. It answers a different question completely, but we'll get to that later. And I know Pastor Sarah spoke on this last week, but could stand repeating. One of the big takeaways from this book is that we, especially as white people, need to learn how to listen without jumping to conclusions, without trying to offer unneeded answers. We need to be willing to sit with people in their suffering, to fight for people when they're suffering. There's a theologian, Paul Tillich. He says that the first duty of love is to listen. And if we truly want to love our neighbor, listening to our neighbor has to be our first step. Listening can actually be harder than you think. There's this program called the Global Immersion Project, and Jer Swigart is one of the founders of it. And he often says that you have to listen beyond your point of comfort. And I know for me that it's easy for me to listen and engage with people as long as I'm comfortable, as long as they're not challenging or bringing up anything inside me. But as soon as I start to feel discomfort, I start to feel challenged or questioned, I throw up a wall and I stop listening. I lean back. I don't want to be a part of it anymore. But we have to train ourselves to lean into the discomfort. We have to use listening as an act of love. We can't contend properly for the oppressed community if we are not listening to what they have to say. And right now I'm speaking specifically of the Black Lives Matter movement and us as white folk who have, for the most part, not listened, not engaged, not read from Black voices. So we need to learn to do that much better. Job's three friends assumed they knew how the world worked, and because they had this idea about the world, it made them unable to listen to Job. So I know for myself, I have a worldview and I have ideas of how things are, and I know this is true for a lot of people, especially people on the internet. It's easy to say you think you know everything, but we can't properly contend for people until we truly disarm ourselves and say, I will listen to what you have to say. I will not try and jump to conclusions. I won't try and force answers on you. Then once we've listened, we can contend, and we have to contend in any way possible, whether it's donating money, speaking out against racism whenever and wherever we see it, leveraging our privilege, even, how the CPT, they use their bodies to physically get in between the oppressor and the oppressed. I know that's not always possible for everybody, but that's a good act of love that people are doing. And one of the books I've been skimming through this past week, I've read it before, but I've been re-skimming through it, is A Black Theology of Liberation by James Cone. And it's a very good read, and it's challenging for white people. It challenges us to be better people, to be better Jesus followers, better kingdom people. So I'm going to read just a few quotes from there real quick. He says that the Black Revolution in America is the revelation of God. In a revolutionary situation, there can never be nonpartisan theology. Theology is always identified with a particular community. It is either identified with those who inflict oppression or with those who are its victims. The essence of the gospel of Christ stands or falls on the question of Black humanity, and there is no way that a church or institution can be related to the gospel of Christ if it sponsors or tolerates racism in any form. I think one of the reasons this popped out to me so much is that I know there's a lot of churches who are actively anti-racist and actively doing things to work on white privilege, and I'm so thankful for our community for being one of those churches, and for our book study to be willing to switch books so that we could lean into what's happening more right now. As Cone says, it's the revelation of God happening. But reading those quotes, you can't be in the middle. You can't. If you're in the middle, you're on the side of the oppressor. There's either the side of the oppressed or the oppressor, and we live in a system that has been designed since the beginning of this country to uplift white people and push down everybody else. And actually, I just watched a really good video by the creator of VeggieTales. I'll post the video on the Facebook page that shows how this system has worked to benefit us and push down Black people and people of color ever since the beginning. It's a very sad video, but we as the body of Christ have to take an active stance against racism, and we have to search in ourselves for any racial biases, any sort of ugliness that we have, and we have to call it out, and we have to challenge it. And then once we do that, we have to do that with the whole system. We have to challenge and question and call out a system that does not benefit all people. It only benefits a certain handful of people, which is us white people. As the body of Christ, we have a duty to fight for the side of the oppressed. And it's becoming clearer and clearer that inaction is taking the side of the oppressor. And one of the first things that we can do is learn to listen better. We've had all the answers for far too long. It is now our time to truly learn, listen, and love properly.
What a joy it is to have Susan Sanner and Oren Scala with us this morning for their first ever attempt at sharing music. They came together here in the worship space this week to pull this song together. So thank you so much for sharing this song with us.
Amazing grace shall always be my song of praise, for it was grace that brought me liberty. I do just why he came to love me so. He looked beyond my faults and saw my need. I shall forever lift mine eyes to Calvary, to see the cross where Jesus died for me. How marvelous the grace that caught my falling soul. He looked beyond my fault and saw my need. I shall forever lift mine eyes to Calvary, to see the cross where Jesus died for me. How marvelous the grace that caught my falling soul. He looked beyond my fault and saw my needs. He looked beyond my fault and saw my need.
Thanks, Jake, for sharing those inspirational words with us this morning. I appreciate the words of James Cone and look forward to reading the book that you mentioned. Hear these words of benediction. May the God who lives in each and our everydays, the one who created one human family, bring us listening ears and hopeful hearts. Have a great week, my friends. Praying for you, asking you to pray for me. Go in peace. Amen. I have a few announcements to share with you this week, in addition to thanking Jake for being with us this morning once again. Thanks, Jake. We are beginning a Confession of White Privilege book study. The congregation approved a statement a couple of weeks ago, and a team got together and thought this would be the best book for us to move forward with. So we are beginning on July 5th at 9 a.m. a 13-week study that will lead us through Robin DiAngelo's book entitled White Fragility. This book will be facilitated, and the conversations will be facilitated by the members who participate in that. We recognize that this conversation is going to be difficult. So we've asked folks that are attending to consider to follow some conversational guidelines. And there's 8 of them. So as you think about joining this book study, here are the 8 conversational guidelines. Many of them are already incorporated into our book study, but 1, I will read and prepare for the book study conversation. 2, I will respect the person talking, allowing them to finish their thoughts with limited crosstalk. I will speak from my heart. I will observe confidentiality so that I can take my learnings and leave everyone's stories. I will speak for myself with honesty. I will say just enough to get my point across. I will listen with curiosity, and I will speak without fear. We hope those conversational guidelines will help us facilitate a life-giving and life transformation conversation. So join us July 5th at 9 a.m. I will be sending a Zoom out to those folks who would like to participate. So let me know, direct message me, give me a call, text me, whatever, so I can get you on that list. There will be a compassionate elder circle. This is a third in a series of 3. And this one is dealing with a community support and trying to look at the new world that we see coming, what it might look like, and what are the gifts that we want to share in that new world, and what are the gifts that we need to be able to move into that new world. Bonnie Louie and Brianda Vargas from the Peace Resource Center will be guiding that circle. The annual conference is canceled, but now they've shared several opportunities. 1, there's a children's worship. 2, there'll be an evening worship for adults and anybody really. And 3, there'll be a Church of the Brethren concert. It's been interesting to see online folks, friends of mine, that are sharing their voice with this mass virtual choir. So we'll see how that comes out. But that's on July 1st and 2nd. The announcements will have the times for you. District conference goes online, and our delegates, who are Susan Sanner, myself, and Oren Scala, and our board chair Jay Scala, or a representative for him, will be participating in that conference. That's November 13th through 15th. And I am sure there will be ways that you will be able to participate as you like. I think that's pretty much the announcements that I have for you this week. I hope you have an enjoyable week. See you Wednesday evening at 6 for our fellowship time. It's really fun. We just kind of sit around in the Zoom room, chat with one another, catch up. And if the silence, if there's a lull in silence, I'll ask a question or something and keep us talking. So hope to see you there. And if not, we'll catch you next week. It will be Zoom worship, actually. So we will not be online. We will be in a Zoom room. So join us as we continue our book of Job with a Zoom conversation. See you next week. Bye-bye.